The following program contains the opinions of the host, guests, and call-in participants. These do not necessarily represent the views of this show's distributors or sponsors. This program may contain obscene, profane, or otherwise objectionable language. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome, ladies and germs, to a lot of really good-looking men. Okay, I'm in the left square.
Marshmallows.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, I'm puffy. Yes, thank you. In the right-hand, top right-hand corner, that's Jeff Meyer from Gawk.com. In the lower left corner, that's Larry Newman from Missouri Bail Bond Association. And on the bottom right-hand corner, that's Tim Conaway, former presidential candidate and former executive editor of Hustler magazine. And okay, so I missed the closing arguments, but I probably didn't miss anything, did I? All right. So I want to and those of you watching, I want to welcome you to our debate panel. I'm going to start this off here. I came off with two really overarching feelings here. First of all, it bothers me that Trump did a pretty good job disciplining himself. He's still a serial exaggerator, and I just kind of wish he'd kind of get down to more facts every once in a while. It's like, like the thing about 18 million people over the border. The best thing I've ever heard is 10 million. I know that, who knows? I know it's not necessarily like a lie or a misstatement, but he's just a constant exaggerator, and it kind of bothers me. But the really weird thing I noticed is I've been wondering for like 3 years whether Joe Biden buys his own shit or knows he's lying. And I've come to the conclusion tonight, there's no doubt in my mind, it's the former. He's delusional. He actually believes this shit. That's the conclusion I've come to. All right, I throw it out. Anybody?
The winner tonight is CNN.
Yeah,
they
actually behaved themselves.
They did, and it was very surprising. So
yes.
I got to give kudos to CNN for tonight.
Yeah.
Well, I think the meeting went down over there because they, basically, this is almost like a last gasp for them. If they fuck this up, their business might be over. So, I think that Mark Thompson sat down with these people and said, "Don't screw this up. Don't be partisan jackasses," and they basically weren't.
Yeah. Well, somebody other than these, talking heads, somebody behind the cameras came up with a list of questions. And then, they had this real regimented format for the whole thing. So, they were just sitting there doing the job as moderators, and they did pretty much stay out of it, although whatever her name is, kept going back to the questions that these guys wouldn't answer, which that's the thing. They asked these guys a question, and they got 2 minutes to give a response. And instead of, let me go back to what he just said. I just want to say what he just said. And, so they wanted to argue with each other instead of answering the fucking questions. Two of them, how will you deport all the illegals? How will you do that? I would have liked to heard Trump say how he was going to do that. And with Biden, it was just about anything they asked him. He had his prepared statements, but he forgot where the notes were or something, and would just stare down and go.
Yeah, was that from a week of rehearsing? He couldn't talk. It was pretty bad.
Biden had a tablet right in front of him.
Yeah, and that. He couldn't find his place on it. They tried to cram too many things into his head, and he would just get stuck someplace, and he would go back to the usual shit. But you know, neither one of these guys said anything of value in terms of what they would do, and more to my interest, how they would accomplish anything that they say they're going to do.
Well, I think Trump messed up and when they came about deporting the illegals. How are you going to do that? It would have been very simple of him to say, I'm going to follow the law that's on the books. That would have been real simple, but that question was so obvious that he probably didn't think he had to say anything about it.
Well, yeah, but what is there are laws that are on the books, but what is the actual, let's say, workflow thing that you're going to get it done? Because we talked about this once on one of our panels, and you said, Larry, who are you going to get to do all this? I mean, if it's 10 million or 18 million, who are you going to get to round up all these people? I'd like to. I wish that's what would happen, but after you brought that up, I thought, well, yeah, Jesus, you'd have to call out the National Guard in every state for 6 months of round-the-clock duty to make a dent in it. So,
Yeah.
Well, the current law, and I've been, of course, I've been in law enforcement and was familiar with this, and the local law enforcement is the one that comes in contact with these people. If they're illegal, they take them to the jail, notify ICE. ICE makes arrangements to pick them up and deport them. And that's the method, that's the legal method of doing it. Now, because there are so many, yes, you're going to have to come up with additional support and additional people. And it is going to cost quite a bit. But yeah, the National Guard's going to have to be involved. But when a law enforcement agency comes in contact with an illegal and they take them to jail and they notify ICE, they're going to have to do something to stop these jails from illegally releasing them before ICE can get there.
Yeah,
that's one of your major obstacles.
Yeah, well,
because they're victims,
Right,
Yeah.
but the DAs have to stay out of it, because they're the ones who are letting all these criminals walk around all the time. Yeah, well, anyway, this whole thing was, to me, the choice between these. I mean, if this is what we've got to go on, and let's consider for a minute that neither one of these guys is the official candidate of their party. This I know that the party's already made their decision. They don't have the testicles to make
Well,
a
hold
change.
on, Jim, before you go on, do you think Biden has absolved himself? I mean, a lot of talk was if he did really badly, this would be the end of him.
Well, this shouldn't have had to be like the test run of, can Joe fake it for 90 minutes? They should already know he's not the guy to do this. I think he came off as usual, stumbling, bumbling, and mumbling. He frozen in place. He's not fit for any job anywhere doing anything.
Well, he could play a corpse.
Well,
I'm terrible.
Handicap, yeah.
Hold it. We got to hear from Jeff because Jeff's been quiet. I get nervous when Jeff doesn't talk.
I'm just listening. Couple of things. I agree with Larry that CNN won.
Yeah.
This should show that the debate format is dead. It started with Kennedy Nixon. This should be the last. There should not be any further debates because there's nothing productive that comes out of them. I think I also agree about Trump missed on two things: the deportation in no detail, and he should have taken advantage of the when Jake asked him twice about help for the people with these drug addictions.
Mhm.
And he didn't have an answer for it.
Right.
You know, he could have, that would have been his place to step in as far as, yes, here's my plan for that. You remember, I lost my brother at a young age to that. And then President Biden, same kind of help that Hunter received, I think needs to be more available for people. Those to me were just two, that and the deportation. Those were the things he could have got very specific and not Trumpian.
Yeah. That's a very good point. He
Yeah.
got, I was talking about exaggeration. He's Trumpy. That's right.
Yeah.
That's that.
And
You said
addiction
it better
is a
than I
key.
did.
Addiction's a key because it would have tied his compassion to Hunter Biden, and the deportation thing. You know, even in the just small discussion we've had, this isn't something you figure out 5 days into your presidency. You better have your plan already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
people are being warned. This is what's going to happen. Be ready for this.
Now, I'm assuming, we've talked about this before. I figure under the best of circumstances, even if it takes a whole year, they'll only be able to deport half of these people at the very most. That's what I figure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. If that.
Time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
my-
finding
my-
them is-
Go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just said it, finding them is going to be the problem because they get in and they bust them someplace or they fly them someplace, they put them up there. But all these young Chinese guys that have come into the country, I'm sure as soon as they dropped them off someplace, they split for the Chinese bunkers where these guys are in training. The Chinese have all this. Have bought up all this land near American military facilities, and I'm sure these guys headed there. So first, you got to track them all down, and then you got to have the people to round them up. You got to have some place to hold them, and you have to have quick action. I mean, the ICE people have to be on hand. I would say, to Larry's point, they don't get a chance to walk out of jail, but that's.
Well, you
Yeah,
have to. Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
It's like saying we're going to confiscate all the guns.
Mhm.
There's
Yeah.
300 million guns around. It's like we're going to get rid of all the illegal
Right.
aliens.
Right.
It's this straw man in the corner everyone gets to punch at, but hitting it doesn't matter. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, that every small community has a policing organization, and that's your army to locate these people. And no, it's not going to happen within 30 days of him taking office. It's going to take a while, but you have a literal army. Every law enforcement officer in every small community and large community are going to come in contact with these people that are illegal. Okay, if they're illegal, if they're here illegally, you arrest them, you take them to jail. ICE is notified. Then it's on ICE. But the question about how do you find them? That's the army that you've got is law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Out there.
Sure.
Okay. Now in all my years in law enforcement and since and even before, in interviewing people and interrogating people and working with people, there's a lot of different levels of mentality across the span of the public and the citizenry. And my read on Trump's one of those people whose mind is so far ahead of what he's saying. He knows what needs to be done. He knows how it's going to be done, but having the time to articulate everything that's running through his head sometimes gets a little tough. Very smart, very intelligent, one of those high IQ type people. Biden doesn't know what is happening unless somebody tells him. Is
Oh,
one
and
of
I
his
gotta stop you.
handlers.
Larry. And not only that does he not know, I don't think he doesn't know he doesn't know.
Correct.
Yeah, that's the other
Correct.
thing too. Yeah,
Correct. He's relying on other people to tell him what they want him to think is happening, and he doesn't question it. He's probably 15 minutes from now he'll be in bed asleep. And he's been out of the White House for over a week. Who's running the country? This whole thing is.
I know.
I mean, obviously, and like I say, and just my experience in talking to people. This guy just doesn't have it together.
No.
His mind is not capable. I mean, you were seeing extremes both directions tonight.
Yeah, so let me ask you guys. I mean, I thought in some ways this debate, maybe Jeff might be right. The debate format might be bullshit. But the fact they did this tonight kind of definitively proved to me that Biden doesn't know what's going on. I mean, I've been speculating about this for ages, but tonight I actually got the impression, no, this guy's completely out of touch. That's the impression I got.
Does he really believe that he inherited 9% inflation?
Yes, I think he does. And that's the point, Larry. I think he believes it.
That's false. So
yes.
So the question is he lying about it? Okay, in the normal sense that we know what lying is.
Yeah, is he telling a fib?
Or is
right.
he parroting what he's being told?
Yeah, he's been told that they fed him that, and so he says it. He doesn't. I agree with Jeff that the debate thing is a dead horse. My wife said that the format for the next debate should either be Rock'em Sock'em Robot or cage fight.
You mean that game from the 70s? Is that what it is?
Because we get a lot more than 90 minutes of that shit tonight, I tell you guys.
I really believe the most truthful thing that Trump said was, I would rather be playing golf and sitting on the beach and not having to worry about this. But if we don't step up, our country is done. And we've all talked about this. He's absolutely right. If this is allowed to continue, we're done.
And then conversely, Larry, Biden said he still insists he got into the race because of the Charlottesville comment, which Snopes just came out 3 days ago and said, no, this never. I mean, it's like, what planet is he on? It's like,
in fact,
that's right.
PolitiFact fact checked all this stuff
in real time.
Yeah, in real time. What were we talking about? Which one of the lies?
The Charlottesville.
Charlottesville, yeah, I think. And what Trump actually said was you had some very bad people in that group, but you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Yeah.
He also condemned the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists.
Right.
So he didn't say what Biden had said, and that was proven a long time ago. I mean, that right after it came out, and the libs took that one little section and said very fine. He took it all out of context.
Yeah. But it was like 7 years ago. It's been debunked over and over again.
Right. Well, and that's again, Biden was fed this stuff. So much of what he was saying about Trump was like old news that had been debunked a long time ago, and they drag it back out. But in this world, in the instant mashed potato world we live in, you bring that back out tonight, and it's real again.
Yeah.
So that was part of the plan of their people. But this wasn't a debate about what I'm going to do as president. It was two old guys bitching at each other, like, the opposing coffee clatch groups at McDonald's of these fucking 80-year-old retirees.
Yeah. Okay,
Careful,
but Tim,
careful.
Tim, I do have to ask you though, because you constantly tell me, and I know most of the time you're right, that I overthink this stuff. So you're talking about the fact. So do you think they had Biden, and I say had his handlers, repeat all this stuff like you said to make it live in the
Oh, yeah,
news streaming
because it's all old stuff. It's all old hat, but they had to have something that they could bring out.
They
And
needed sound bites and clips.
right, exactly, and that's all I'll tell you. I mean, 90 minutes of this stuff, most people's brains, and we're an older group of people that sat through mass and long classes and college stuff where we actually paid attention. But most of the population today, below the age of 50, can't handle more than 2 minutes of information, and can't process it or keep it.
Jeffrey, talk to me.
Yep. I think as we're talking here, Trump has lost a lot of the Trumpness. 4 years ago or 6 years ago, Trump would have came out and said, "Can you imagine a country or a business where the leader has to go prepare to speak for 90 minutes, has to take a whole week away from running the business or the country?"
Yeah.
And that's why I'm going to run to get rid of this swamp. Obviously, no one's really needs to run this thing, which means it's on autopilot, which means it's not doing anything for the citizens. It's only taking care of itself. He never once brought up that Trump or that Biden didn't work for a whole week, and no one bitched about it.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
I
true.
mean, Biden, you don't see Biden for weeks at a time anyway.
Right.
unless he's
And this
on
would have been a
vacation
great
somewhere.
time to say that, right?
Yeah, to point that out, that
Remind
it,
people.
absentee president.
This guy's been
Well-
on vacation 800 days and blah, blah, blah. He didn't hit any of those points that the old Trump would have.
Well, Trump at his rallies was taking the polls on whether he should be nice to Biden or whether he should go after him. I think he went after him, but in a much more subtle way than he usually would.
Mhm.
Okay. I think he was trying to be nice, and it was just it had a hard time doing it with all of the crap that Biden was spewing.
But
Yeah, it's-
once again, I
Kept his language very clean. Biden had used a couple of cuss words in different replies, and Trump never. And I think in the locker room he can talk like a locker room guy, but he was very disciplined on that here, where Biden was kind of that frat rat guy, throwing in his little zingers.
Oh, yeah.
You're just a liar.
Yeah, I guess the question is who would you think looked more presidential? And I'm obviously Trump came out with knowing what he was about and what the facts were and what everything was, and he came out in more of a presidential mannerism than he did 4 years ago or even 8 years ago. More calm and more of a presidential type,
Yeah,
I will say that.
Yeah, he like it calm is the word. He didn't get all worked up, because when he gets all worked up, he gets way off the case, and he gets into stuff. So he did contain himself a lot more. Now, whether or not that, and again, he doesn't have to play to his group of hardcore followers. He has to play to the middle.
yeah.
And so that was a good thing for him to do, because I think people were tuning in expecting some Trump antics, and for him to get into one of his rants and stuff. So,
Well, I think
And I don't know, did you guys see the end of it? Jill came out from behind to stand by Joe. Trump basically kind of looked around and just, strolled off with that same demeanor he came onto the stage with, he left with by himself. And it was almost like they sent Jill out to find the lost dog in the neighborhood.
yeah.
Well, that's right. How's he going to get off the stage? Now I have to say, looking at these two guys for 90 minutes, to me, I actually thought Biden physically did not come off well. I mean,
No, he didn't.
he didn't. No, I don't know. He did too much talking. He had a raspy voice the entire time. He still tripped over his words. He lost his train of thought. I mean, it was not good. Not good at all.
Well, did you catch the time that Biden said that Putin told Trump to just go ahead and do anything you want? He got that thing totally reversed.
Yeah, that's right. He did.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, he was messing it up. And again, they tried to cram too much into his head, and he was trying to spit it back out. But because he doesn't know what he's talking about, he was flipping everything around, getting it backwards, stumbling over it. And he didn't have a teleprompter there. He did have that tablet, but it wasn't connected to him. They hadn't implanted the chip or whatever so that he could connect directly with his electronic device.
So did he have an earpiece? That question was brought up. Did
I
Biden
didn't-
have an earpiece?
I think that would confuse him more. I mean, he'd be the guy that would look like, well, who the hell's talking? Oh yeah.
Also, if he got caught with an earpiece and CNN didn't do anything about it, they'd be over again. It'd be over too. You know.
But don't you think this keeping Robert Kennedy Jr. out was BS on CNN's part?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, and he had Megyn Kelly had him on early in the week, or maybe it was last Friday, was explaining like this was the criteria. He goes, I'm actually the nominee for the independent party or whatever party he's running for. These guys are supposedly going to be, and I'm the one left off.
Right.
Yeah, well, the rules for these things, CNN doesn't make them up. The rules are made up by basically the Democratic and Republican parties set up the rules for how you are certified or qualify to be in this thing. And they set it up so that basically nobody but a Republican or a Democrat is going to get in. And,
Well, the committee for presidential debates wasn't even involved in this year. This is the first debate in 33 years that committee on presidential debates wasn't even involved. It was CNN only.
Oh, well, that committee got out of it because of the interference from the Republican Democratic parties and the other things that they had. They said, we're not going to be involved with this anymore.
Well, I got to point out that under the rules that CNN established, or that the Democratic and Republican parties established, I can't have sex with Stormy Daniels either. Apparently, I'm locked out of that, so that's not going to happen. Just want to tell you.
Jim, I say when you do it, wear a rubber. Okay.
What was that?
I said when you do it, wear a rubber. She says Trump didn't put the glove on.
Oh yeah.
So
I got swimmers that strong anymore. Yeah, sure.
Well, I'm not worried about that. It's like what you get, the swimmers coming from the other side.
Oh yeah. Okay.
You're like a porn star without a glove on. I mean,
all right.
Jesus.
Okay. All right.
Speaking of getting a glove on, I was a little disappointed they didn't say anything about Canada. Because lately I've been thinking about what the Canadian ladies say, climb every mountain. They're hot. Those guys are hot. And, it's a good thing we don't have law enforcement officers in big red coats and Smokey the Bear hats down here. They get fucked to death. I mean, those
So
guys.
going back to Conk News, we've done about 400. We've done about 500 of these shows, and Conaway, that's the first time you've ever sang.
and it will, I'm sure, be the last. I'll take my singing privileges.
You're singing on the damn internet. Intertube. Okay, all right, fine.
But nothing about Canada and nothing about Mexico. And Mexico is, the immigration problem doesn't start at the border. Mexico lets these people come in from anywhere and hang around and pass through. They don't do anything to them. And then Canada, we've got trade problems with Canada that need to be handled. But well, those people didn't bring any of that stuff up. They want to talk about climate change, which is, again, I think CNN's questions were a little bit lame. The deportation question was a good one that Trump didn't jump on. I don't know. Everything that they threw at Biden was a softball.
Yeah.
If his people weren't clued in beforehand, they had it in their week-long prep for this guy.
And this is a real personal thing with me personally about this whole climate change bullshit. Nobody ever actually says, "Oh, it's just crap." That's the thing. I mean, it's crap from the get-go. I mean, I feel really strongly about this, and not to mention the fact she starts the question with, "Well, last summer was the hottest summer in world history." You know what that's called? Weather.
Well, it's bullshit. Did anybody see the map of the United States and what the hottest temperature in July was and when it was? Going back to the 1930s, 1935 and 36 was the hottest on record in the Midwest, all up and down from Arkansas clear up to Minnesota.
Yeah.
That was 1935 and 1936.
But I know
nothing since 1960.
Yeah, right. The whole thing is, they say, "Oh, we've had the hottest years on record," and the gases, the carbon gases, play a factor in the climate, but in the best study that I've ever seen of it, they only account for as much as 20% of the expected temperature rise between now and the end of the century. So they don't account for even 20% of what's going on right now. And that's the only thing that we can change. Everything else, the Mankiewicz cycles, the ellipsis of the sun, I talked about all this stuff before. I'm not going to get into the science, but there are 80% of what's going on with the weather is natural phenomenon. The sun is shifting its poles. There's all kinds of stuff going on in the universe that's beyond our control, and it makes for good politics. Just like the Roe versus Wade thing, there are things going on between men and women in the world that are, as the Supreme Court pointed out, not the business of the federal government. And it's the business of men and women. How the government can wants to stick its nose into an area like that has always been beyond me.
That's also one of the times where I thought that Trump should have been more specific, because I think maybe like Larry, like you were saying, sometimes his mind gets ahead of himself and he's talking, and he did point out, okay, so it went back to the States about the fact that how incredibly proper that is. That, I mean, he is right. Nobody and no good constitutional scholar disagrees with this. I mean, it's supposed to be a state's issue, and
but he wasn't listening. Yeah, he wasn't listening to Biden, because Biden said, he said, well, what about the Glenn Youngkins or whatever that governor was that said they could have the baby and then get rid of it. And at that point, Trump should have said, I just want to remind you, you want your state picking the rules, and then you pick the state according to the rules. Because if it's just the federal government throwing the rules down to the states, there's no uniqueness to our 50 states. And that's what I was doing with Roe v. Wade. You can choose to stay in a state with their abortion rules or not. But when the federal government lays that law across the entire 50 states, you have no room for anything other than their rule.
Right.
And he was right to say, when he was saying the people get to vote on it.
Oops.
Instead of Congress voting on it, you vote your local representatives and your local senators in the state. You've got a lot more control over that than you've got over the federal government. The federal people are so out of touch, so unreachable that they represent themselves. They don't represent the people. But local politicians have to be responsible to local citizens because they're right there.
Well, there is so much that should be back to the states. Um, Power corrupts, and the more that the federal government tries to take over every single part of your life and control it and regulate it, and the more money that they want and the more money that they spend is what gets you into the problems we've got now. So they were right. It should go back to the state. There's a lot of things that should go back to the state.
Yeah.
About
Yeah.
half of the regulatory agencies in Washington should be cut down, and the other half cut in half.
Yeah, the Department of Education, that's a state and even a local issue, but definitely not a federal issue. The Department of Labor, the labor situation in Ohio versus New Hampshire and Maine versus New Mexico and Arizona versus Seattle and Portland. You can't put in one plan for all the variety that you got across there.
Well, the EPA right now, when it rains, and I suppose it rains up there, when it rains, that mud puddle that's in your driveway now is regulated by the EPA. You can't fill it up. You can't get rid of that water. It's regulated by the EPA. And we're getting kind of ridiculous here.
No, of course it is. Too many bureaucrats.
Yeah. Well,
Exactly.
and when you cut all these people that Larry's talking about, when you cut these entire federal agencies, or you take then all the duplicated efforts, you've got bureaus and all these agencies that are doing basically the same thing. When you cut that down and combine it into one thing, if it is in fact a rightful federal operation, then you more than cut in half the cost of federal government. So, but the Roe versus Wade thing, I was hoping would start this wave of, this is not the federal government the Constitution doesn't give Congress the right to do things like this. This is a state's issue. And then I was hoping that all these other things that are part of the federal bureaucracy that Congress never had the authority to set up under the Constitution, I thought they would all get knocked down. But people haven't picked up on that and brought all that forward.
But they don't have a chance. The media is so crooked that, that's the problem with any of this change is the media is so hell-bent on protecting that entire group that they don't I watched an interview. Tucker Carlson was in Australia, and on his news channel he had this 1 hour discussion with a room full of people, and he says, geez, this is a beautiful country, blah blah blah. He says, but your media is just as stupid as the American media. And he looks off to his right and he goes, yeah, I'm talking to you guys over there. You guys are from this, like what we would call ABC in the States. And it is and to me, that's what Trump, you aren't going to change people's minds. What you have to do is challenge their thinking so that they internalize the question and then something either reaffirms it or contradicts it. And I don't think Trump gave enough of that tonight. He didn't really pound on Roe v. Wade like it's a state's issue and have 4 or 5 other things like you're talking about, Tim. Like that also this, and this away from Washington, D.C. That's 1,000 miles from your hometown to the back to in your hometown is where the decision's going to be made. And again, I'm queuing in on Trump is almost part of the system now because he's not bashing or taking opportunity every time that comes up to hit that nail again, like he did when he was first running. I mean, he was good.
Yeah, that part seemed to be lacking. He didn't seem to be. He's, as you say, seemed to be part of that establishment rather than challenging it and taking it on, which is too bad. I mean, you know, if these guys are the actual candidates, and as I said earlier, they haven't been formally selected by their
That's
party.
true. That's right.
And,
They haven't.
you know, the chances that either party would pick somebody else, I know, are very slim. But I think people maybe ought to look. We'll see what comes out in the next few days. Although I don't trust polls and surveys and that kind of shit, but you know, the parties ought to look seriously at, are these the best people that we could put forward? Biden certainly isn't. I don't know who they've got that they could put out there. There's no outstanding Democrat anywhere that leader
Yeah,
or thinker.
my wife and I had that same conversation about 30 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Who the Democrats going to choose? They've got nobody.
Well, first of all, I let's just ask point blank: did he do well enough to stop any talk or replace him on the ticket or not?
No.
I don't think so.
Huh?
I
Interesting.
think there's just as much doubt, other than he could take a week off from work, put a bunch of stuff in his head, and get it out, but not in an organized, clear, concise, leader type.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very true. For a guy who spent a whole week studying up on this, he did not. I mean, it wasn't very cogent. I mean, it
Yeah.
was,
I don't
all this
care how much you hate
sycophants
Trump.
said.
Do you really want Joe Biden running this country?
yeah.
Right.
Well, that's the problem, you know. And what if you don't want either guy running the country? I mean, that's, to me, it's like the choice is like you're on Let's Make a Deal, and so far you've won a trip to South Philadelphia, and you're asked if you want to trade that trip for what's behind door number 3, and standing in front of door number 3 is this really stacked blonde in a skin-tight dress, and she's smiling and waving at you, and you say, "Oh, I want that." And so you get what's behind door number 3, and it turns out to be a donkey and an accordion. So, you know, I'm just, Trump.
Or Hillary.
Yeah, well, Trump came off better tonight, I think, in like you were saying.
And Tim, are you
proposed
making fun of my obsession with the Let's Make a Deal? You're not making.
I just don't know why I brought that up. You know, and he came off better tonight. I don't think the Republicans would challenge him. They're afraid to lose his core group, but his core group isn't enough to get him across the line. And
Right.
you know, that is the problem that I see. You don't want Biden or any of that group of Democrats in there. I don't think there are any centrist Democrats anymore. There are some stable Republican candidates that you know you could put up there. But you know, Trump, when they asked him point blank, will you accept the results of the election, yes or no? He didn't say yes or no. He said, if it's fair, if it's, you know, and all that bullshit about the 2020 election being rigged and there was fraud and he was robbed and all that kind of shit. That didn't start after the election. He started that 3 months before the election. He started talking about the possibility of the thing being rigged as his out. When he gets in, he's talked about retribution. He's talked about other shit like that. Trump's policies, if he continued what he was doing before, that would be great. If he did for business what he did before, that would be great. But if he spends his time getting even with all these people he thinks hurt him, that's going to fuck things up.
I don't think that I've heard him talk about getting even with people. It's fixing the problems. It's like the elections. Okay, we need to get back to elections that are above reproach and get rid of a lot of these uh, election things that are very questionable. Uh, I have a friend of mine who was in Alabama at a poll as a poll worker on the night of the election and saw the truckload of Joe Biden ballots being trucked in, and they were excluded from the poll while those were being unloaded and counted. It started, the thing started immediately, and it wasn't Trump. It was all this information that was coming into it. So tonight, when I saw Trump answer that question, I think he answered it very concisely and very precisely. Yes, I will accept the results as long as the elections are fair and it's done legally and above board. Who could argue with that?
Well, but again, he's taking that out, that if he loses, basically, he can make this complaint again like he did the last time. And he didn't,
If there's evidence, yes.
he didn't start, well, there wasn't any evidence of any major wrongdoing in any of these elections. I've looked at all this stuff, I've heard all this crap, and you're telling about this guy in Alabama. Did he actually see the ballots marked for Joe Biden that they took into the other room? And
Well, there was about 9,000 ballots, and I think Trump got 10 votes. That doesn't. There's no.
Yeah, well, I would
balance there. If
I would like to.
If it was 40% to 60, that's one thing. But
yeah, I would like to look at stuff like that myself.
Yeah.
If Trump had not started 3 months before the 2020 elections talking about the possibility of the elections being rigged, after the elections, people wouldn't have been raising any of these questions. Elections have always been subject to some kind of chicanery. And in the late half of the 19th century, ballots weren't even private. You cast your ballot and you gave it to the local committee chairman or the machine guy, and they took them in. Elections now are much safer and much harder to rig than ever before. And in all the investigations of all this stuff, very few things changed in the total outcome of it. So this equivocating on, if it's fair and if it's rigged is just another thing to set up another bunch of bullshit that was created out of whole cloth, in my opinion.
I got a text from an avid Jim Peters at Night viewer, and Bill says a 50-year career politician should have mopped the rhetorical floor with Trump tonight, and that's the truth. I watch MSNBC 4 out of 5 mornings to start my day. My family doesn't know why. I do it strategically because I want to understand if the world blows up today, who are they coming after? And they talk about it every morning. But that's true. You have these sycophants on MSNBC that say Joe Biden's as sharp as ever. He's engaged. He's this and that. He's a 50-year career politician. He shouldn't have needed a week to train up for this. He should have been able to run the country, show up 10 minutes before in Atlanta, and fly back to Washington, D.C. and get the hostages released.
That's right.
And that's what didn't happen tonight. So Biden could be susceptible to being run off the ticket.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let me put out another question here too. All right, this is why I'm thinking. I don't know if Trump won the debate, but Biden probably lost it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, and I think Trump came off a lot better because he was calmer and because this instead of answering the question, both of them did this. Well, let me just continue about what he
Yeah,
was.
well, that's the
saying.
very reason, like you guys were saying, that the debate format's kind of dead. That's the
Yeah,
very reason.
If you were on stage with someone and they flat lied about you, are you not going to respond to that?
No, I'm gonna.
I mean, that's, we know Trump's a fighter. When somebody lies about you, he is not going to let it go.
Yeah,
Well,
And
I did not have sex with that porn star.
yeah, let's see another lie, and but
Yeah, I gotta admit, I don't buy it either.
yeah, if somebody said stuff about me and I was on stage, I would give it a quick, that's crap. But here's my answer to your question, and here's what I'm going to do to help the country.
you're right. There were times I wish Trump would have just went ahead and answered the question that was asked him and not
Yeah,
got
that's why I say I
Okay.
don't know if Trump actually won, but Biden lost. That's the way I look at this.
And Trump didn't do anything that was noticeable that's going to be replayed for
That's
the
correct.
next.
He didn't.
Other than they're going to maybe
Right.
do the Stormy Daniels thing, which guys don't care about, right? Men
Yeah.
don't care, and the
I think
women that
nobody
do
cares.
care, who cares about them?
Have you ever
right?
heard Ron White's routine about Tiger Woods? he
No,
says
but I'll have to look it up.
he says, did any man in America really care about the fact that Tiger Woods had 14 girlfriends? It's like he had to deny that. Oh my God, it's terrible. It's so bad. He had 14 girlfriends. I don't know.
Yeah.
You had to be there. I'm just a
Yeah.
joker, man, and I'm punchy because I've been basically laid up for 3 weeks and my brain's shot. So
Did you get a Biden cocktail in you before the show started?
no, I didn't. I did not do that. I did take a couple Tylenol. I did do that.
Oh,
That's the extent of my my bottle shot. So
no,
although I don't actually know that he didn't seem very jacked up at the beginning or at any time.
No.
No, he
what
was
is he-
fading.
What did you say?
He was fading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At 9:00 our time, I got a text from my sister, and she's like, "Are you watching this train wreck?" And I said, "Yes." Just hang on. The meds are about to wear off. It
That's
could be
right. That's
exciting.
exactly what I've been saying for a week.
Yeah.
It's going to be the last half hour that's going to go to hell.
Yeah, the first half
Oh my
hour
God.
he was in trouble. He was
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
doing
I
it.
like the discussion about the golf. And
Yeah.
Joe,
Oh, that was
oh, I
hilarious.
gotta
Those
show
are six.
handicap.
handicap.
Yeah. And-
Okay,
and
when he
Trump
was
says-
25, maybe.
That'll
yeah,
get pulled
Trump
out.
says, I've seen your swing. There's no way you're a 6. And for anyone who doesn't know, Trump is a great golfer, and great golfers can look at another golfer and they always do it before the money starts to be talked about, right?
Yeah, right.
And so if you're playing for money, which Trump does, because everyone wants to take money off him,
Yeah.
who knows? He can watch you swing and go, let's bet the farm, or shit, I need a few strokes.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was funny how they both went running off, but Trump kind of brought it back to the middle, like, yeah, let's not act like kids.
Yeah.
Well, all of the celebrities and the hundreds of people that have played golf with Trump, if he was that bad, somebody would have come out and said and laughed and said he stinks. He can't hit the
Yeah.
ball. But that's never happened.
Well, according to PolitiFact, they checked the golf scores,
Uh-huh.
and Biden is posted a 6.7, but he hasn't played a round of golf since he hasn't put a score in the system since 2018, and the scores are self-reported, and it's your 8 lowest scores out of 20, the 8 lowest holes. Trump has posted at the famed Winged Foot Country Club a handicap of 2.5. So these are the facts, folks, on the golf matter. And if a president can't play golf, we are in trouble.
Yeah.
And that's why we were the whole Obama administration.
Yeah.
He couldn't throw a baseball. He looked like Howdy Doody riding a bike, and his golf swing looked like shit.
Yeah. Dwight Eisenhower, though, man, he was out there every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had it
Gentle
going on.
hands.
Yeah. Well, guys, are we done? I guess we are. I don't know. You tell me.
I'm
Final
not done
thoughts,
wearing them.
anybody? Let's go around the horn here. Jeff, final thoughts?
Let's pray when we put our heads on our pillow tonight that this is the last time we ever have to watch a president.
Oh, yeah, that's another question. I'm predicting that there won't be a second debate. I don't think there will be
I
one.
agree.
Yeah,
I hope not. It doesn't do anyone any
No.
good.
I don't think so. Tim?
Well, yeah, I agree. There shouldn't be one, but there will be because it's free TV. It's free exposure. You know, if a TV network or a bunch of networks say you can come on and talk for 90 minutes, then and we're not charging you anything for it, you're going to do it.
Has a second debate been assigned to any network? I don't actually
Yeah,
know.
it's in September. It's in September.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
Did Fox get it?
I don't know.
I don't know who's got it, but yeah, there's going to be another one. But my take on the whole thing was we didn't really learn anything new or beneficial for intelligent voters in terms of evaluating the candidates. We got, for intelligent voters, we got what we expected. But my concern is that 90% of the population, they can't think for themselves and are led by the hand, for everything that they do. And that won't, none of what they decide or what they think they're going to do comes out of the debate itself. It comes out of the nonstop coverage we're going to get now through the weekend.
Larry, final thoughts?
Well, I think that obviously that CNN won as far as they're concerned. I think Trump won the debate. Biden lost the debate. He did it better than Biden did better than I thought he would because he didn't fall down.
Yeah, and hold it, Larry.
but-
I actually did think there was a good chance he would actually literally collapse.
Originally they were supposed to have him seated, but that went away. So anyway, having lived through a number of presidential elections, we can all await the September surprise that eventually will happen. A lot of these elections turn in September or October. Maybe not a lot, but there's always something that happens. So
Yeah.
Tonight was interesting. I think it was scary for the average American to see what their current leader is actually like.
Two old codgers, yeah, right.
Well, age is not a concern here. It's the mental acuity that's the concern.
Yeah.
I don't care how old you are. I know some 90-year-old men that are pretty sharp.
Yeah.
So that's not the problem. It's the mental acuity. So I think that Trump came away with the win tonight. Probably not enough to sway people who were in Joe Biden's corner. So
Yeah, that's the thing.
probably going to
I have
walk
them.
away from this one with
So
with
do you
very
guys?
little movement.
What do you guys think of this? I don't think when the polls are done in a few days, I don't think the needle's going to move hardly at all.
It might just a little,
Yeah, a little.
but there wasn't a slam dunk hard enough to really move the polls. And you got to remember, 30% of the population will buy anything that the news media throws at them, even when they know it's wrong.
Yeah, I know.
So, I mean, Biden's down about that point already, so there's not a whole lot of movement can be made.
Yeah.
Well,
Just,
Trump gets to end up going home to Melania, and Joe is stuck with Jill. So Trump really does win tonight.
does anybody want to sing us off the air? Tim, you got
No.
another song?
I just hope that Joe Biden maintains enough that we don't get stuck with Hillary or Barack's husband. So we can survive that. We'll be all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't want Big Mike.
I don't want Big Mike. No.
Oh, Joey crack corn and I don't care. Joey crack corn and I don't care.
Oh my God. All right. Well, that'll make the blooper reel. Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough. Now I didn't load up the Conk front page because I didn't want to clutter the screen, but our show is sponsored by Conk News, which is run by Jeff Meyer in the upper right corner there. Go check that out at conk.com. Best news aggregator on the internet, period.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
and we're all from there. So
Yeah.
that spawned us. So gentlemen, thank you. Jeff, Tim, Larry, really appreciate it.
Have a great weekend.
See you guys.
Yeah, we have a show on Monday. I don't have a guest right now, but yeah, we'll have a show. We'll see you on Monday. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. Really appreciate it. We'll take care. We'll see you.
Okay.